You're listening to Just a Dude podcast with your host, Nathan. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's roll. Hey folks, welcome back to Just a Dude in the News on Just a Dude podcast, the podcast where we break down the week's big stories without all the drama and spin. I'm your host, Nathan, just a regular guy trying to make sense of this wild world. We're talking the top 10 headlines from September 19th through today, the 26th, 2025, right here in the United States. We've got some heavy hitters this week with policy shakeups to health debates and everything in between. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's dive right into this week's stories. All right. Kicking things off with a big one from the economic front. On September 26th, President Trump dropped a bombshell at a White House press conference announcing brand new import tariffs that are set to hit hard starting next week. We're talking a whopping 100% duties on branded pharmaceuticals coming into the country, plus 25% levies on heavy-duty trucks. The goal, as laid out by the administration, is to bring manufacturing jobs back home and cut down on what they call unfair foreign competition that's been hurting American workers far too long. It's classic Trump playbook, folks, putting America first in the trade game. Now, let's unpack why this matters. These tariffs aren't just numbers on a page. They're aimed straight at protecting domestic industries that have been shipping jobs overseas. The White House says this could create thousands of positions in pharma plants and truck assembly lines right here in the heartland. Imagine that. More factories humming in places like Ohio or Michigan, where folks have been waiting for a fair shot. And it's not just talk either. The executive order was signed on the spot, with implementation fast-tracked to avoid any delays. Economists are already crunching the numbers, but early projections suggest a boost to GDP from reshoring supply chains. Of course, not everyone's popping champagne. Big Pharma is already crying foul, warning that higher costs for imported drugs could trickle down to patients at the pharmacy counter. They've got a point, sure. But let's remember, these companies have been raking in record profits while everyday Americans foot the bill. The administration's response? They've promised targeting exemptions for life-saving meds and incentives for companies to build stateside. It's a balancing act, no doubt, but one that leads into self-reliance, which feels like a breath of fresh air after years of one-sided deals. Wrapping this up, this move signals a tougher stance on global trade, and it's got ripple effects everywhere from Wall Street to your local dealership. As we head into the weekend, keep an eye on how markets react. Stocks in affected sectors dipped a bit today, but long-term, this could be the reset our economy needs. What do you think, listeners? Hit me up on social media with your takes. I'd love to hear them. Shifting gears to something that's hitting close to home for a lot of families. On September 22nd, President Trump and Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. held a joint briefing in the Roosevelt Room, dropping what they called significant findings on a potential leak between acetaminophen, good old Tylenol, and rising autism rates in kids. They pointed to new studies suggesting that moms using the pain reliever during pregnancy might be contributing to the uptick in diagnoses, calling it a wake-up call for better safety data. It's bold stuff, and it's already sparking debates across the medical community. Diving deeper, the announcement came with a stack of research papers the administration commissioned, highlighting patterns in exposure during key developmental windows. Kennedy, with his background in environmental health, emphasized how everyday meds like this haven't faced enough scrutiny. And Trump backed it up by advising parents to hold off on Hep B shots until kids hit 12. Tying it all into broader push for informed choices. The idea is to empower families with info, not mandates, which resonates in an era where trust in big institutions is shaky at best. It's about questioning the status quo, and honestly, who wouldn't want more transparency on what we're putting into our bodies? That said, the pushback has been swift and loud. Leading pediatric groups like the American Academy of Pediatrics fired off statements calling the claims overstated, stressing that acetaminophen remains a safe option for millions when used as directed. They've got decades of data on their side, and critics worried this could fuel unnecessary fear among expectant mothers. But here's the flip. The administration isn't backing down, promising more independent reviews and even floating FDA label changes. It's a clash between emerging science and established norms, and it's forcing a real conversation on maternal health. As this story unfolds, it's clear we're at a crossroads for how we handle everyday health risks. Families are tuning in, doctors are prepping for questions, and social media is buzzing with personal stories. Whether this leads to real changes or gets buried in the noise, it's a reminder to stay curious and do your homework. Man, this next one's tough to talk about, but we have to. On September 24th, tragedy struck in an ICE field office in Dallas, Texas, when a gunman opened fire, killing one detainee and critically wounding two others. Authorities identified the suspect as 29-year-old Joshua Jean, a local with a known history to law enforcement, and they're digging into motives that seem tied to anti-government sentiments. The facility was processing folks for deportation, and this attack has ramped up security at ICE sites nationwide, with extra patrols now in places like California. The details are heartbreaking. The victims were illegal immigrants awaiting transfer, described by officials as nonviolent cases just caught in the system. DHS Acting Director Todd Lyons called it a senseless act of domestic terrorism, linking it to a string of incidents post the Charlie Kirk assassination earlier this month. President Trump weighed in quickly, vowing to expand the terrorist watch list for groups like Antifa and promising an executive order to dismantle these networks. It's a stark reminder of how heated the immigration debate gets, with violence bubbling up from the fringes. On the ground, communities are reeling. Dallas locals held vigils that night, calling for calm, while federal agents swept the area for accomplices. Law enforcement's response has been all hands on deck, with the FBI leading the probe and tips pouring in from across the state. This isn't just a local story. It's spotlighting the broader push for border security, where the administration's deportation goals are meeting real-world pushback. Folks on the right see it as validation for tougher measures, while others worry about escalating rhetoric. Looking ahead, this could reshape how we handle facility protections and public discourse on enforcement. It's a call for de-escalation, but also for resolve in upholding the law. Our thoughts go out to the families involved, and we'll keep following the developments as they come. Up next on our list, and it's got that fiscal cliff vibe. As of September 25th, the White House issued directives to agencies prepping for a potential government shutdown, including plans for mass firings if funding talks stall. With about 300,000 federal civilian jobs already shred this year through buyouts, another 154,000 are slated to exit payroll by September 30th, the end of the fiscal year. It's part of a larger efficiency drive, but critics are calling it a blunt axe on bureaucracy. Breaking it down, this stems from the House passing a stopgap bill on September 19th to keep lights on through November, but negotiations hit snags over spending caps. The administration's stance is clear. Trim the fat to save taxpayer dollars, targeting redundant roles in a government that's grown way too big. Office of Personnel Management Director Scott Cooper laid it out in interviews, saying it's about modernizing for the 21st century, not knee-jerk cuts. Proponents argue it'll free up billions for priorities like defense and infrastructure, putting money back where it counts. The human side, though, is tough. Career civil servants, many with decades of service, are facing uncertainty, and unions are mobilizing lawsuits. Reports from the ground show morale dipping in D.C. hallways, with folks wondering if essential services like veterans' benefits will glitch. Yet the White House counters that core functions stay intact, and this leaner model echoes private sector success. It's a gamble, but one that aligns with promises of a smaller, smarter government. As deadlines loom, Congress has a narrow window to act, and all eyes are on bipartisan talks. This could be a turning point on how we fund the federal machine, emphasizing accountability over endless expansion. We'll see if cooler heads prevail. Lightening things up a bit with some sports action that crossed into news. The 2025 Ryder Cup teed off on September 26th at Bethpage Black in New York. And President Trump was right there in the gallery, drawing cheers and a bit of international buzz. The biennial golf showdown between Team USA and Team Europe got underway with high stakes as the Americans aimed to reclaim the cup after a tough loss last time. It's not just birdies and bogeys, it's events pulling in crowds and cameras like few others. What makes it pop this year? Trump's presence added that extra layer of star power, with him chatting up players and even predicting a blowout win for the home team. The matches started strong with early leads for the U.S. in foursomes, showcasing talents like Scottie Scheffler sinking clutch putts under pressure. Fans packed the course, waving flags and turning it into a patriotic party, which fits the vibe of unity through competition. Golf purists love the strategy, but it's the electric atmosphere that's making headlines. Behind the scenes, there's talk of how this Ryder Cup reflects broader American resilience, especially with economic winds fresh in the air. Europe's squad, led by Rory McIlroy, isn't going down easy, promising a fight to the finish on Sunday. Organizers reported record attendance, boosting local businesses and proving sports can bridge divides. Trump's nod to the event as a symbol of excellence didn't hurt either, tying into themes of peak performance. As the weekend unfolds, expect more drama on the greens, but for now, it's a win for feel-good stories in a busy news cycle. Whether you're a golf nut or just like the pageantry, this one's worth tuning into. Here's a tech alert for our next story. On September 24th, a coalition of AI bigwigs, including Anthropic's CEO, issued a stark warning about extinction-level risks from unchecked artificial intelligence, right as the UN General Assembly wrapped up in New York. They signed on to a statement calling for global guardrails, echoing a 2023 pledge but amping up the urgency with fresh data on rapid advancements. It's a reminder that while AI is revolutionizing everything from medicine to manufacturing, the flip side could be catastrophic if we drop the ball. Let's get into the weeds on this. These leaders aren't doomsdayers for fun. They're citing models that learn faster than we can regulate, potentially outpacing human oversight in critical areas like defense or finance. The UNGA timing was no coincidence, with side sessions hashing out international treaties. In the U.S., this ties into domestic pushes for ethical AI, with the administrating eyeing frameworks that prioritize innovation without the nanny state overreach. It's about harnessing the power, not hobbling it, which feels like a pragmatic right-leaning take. Skeptics in Silicon Valley rolled their eyes, calling it hype to snag more funding, but public reaction on social media leaned toward caution, with polls showing most Americans want safeguards. Companies like Anthropic are walking the talk, backing safety into their tech, but the call is for Washington to lead with clear rules. This debate's just heating up, and it could shape everything from markets to national security. Bottom line, AI is the future we can't ignore, but smart risks beat blind leaps. Keep an eye on Capitol Hill for bills in the works. Let's go back to the legal arena. On September 26th, former FBI Director James Comey was indicted on one count of making false statements and another of obstruction of justice, stemming from a multi-year probe into his tenure. The charges, unsealed in D.C. federal court, allege he misled investigators during inquiries tied to the 2016 election and beyond. It's a culmination of scrutiny that's dogged him since leaving office, and the DOJ is moving swift under new leadership. The backstory is a doozy. Comey's role in high-profile cases drew fire from both sides, but these specifics point to discrepancies in his accounts of classified briefings. Special counsel John Durham's team, revived this year, pieced it together with fresh witness testimonies and documents. Trump hailed it as accountability finally arriving, while Comey's camp called it a political payback, vowing a vigorous defense. Either way, it's shaking up the Beltway, with hearings set for next month. Impact-wise, this could ripple through former official circles, reminding everyone that no one's above the rules. Legal experts say that the evidence bar is high, but if it sticks, it's a precedent for probing past actions. Public trust in institution hangs in the balance, and this feels like a step towards restoring it by calling out inconsistencies. As this case builds, it'll be fascinating to watch the courtroom drama. Justice delayed isn't always denied, and this one's got legs. Health policy shift for our next story. On September 23rd, the CDC's Advisory Committee voted unanimously to scrap the blanket recommendations for COVID vaccines, switching to a personal choice model based on individual risk factors. It's a pivot from pandemic-era mandates, reflecting updated data on immunity and lower severe case rates. Director Dr. Susan Monarez, recently in the spotlight, famed it as empowering Americans to decide what's best for them and their families. Why now? With variants stabilizing and boosters widespread, the committee reviewed mountains of studies showing tailored advice outperforms a one-size-fits-all. This aligns with broader deregulation vibes, letting docs and patients weigh options without federal heavy-handedness. Social media lit up with relief from skeptics who've pushed for this, while public health advocates urge caution to avoid complacency. It's a nuanced change, not a full retreat. On the ground, pharmacies are adjusting signage and insurers are clarifying coverage. Expect more customized plans, potentially saving billions in unnecessary shots. Critics fret about uptake drops, but early signs show steady demand from high-risk groups. This move underscores personal responsibility, a core value that's resonating coast to coast. It's evolution in action, folks, adapting science to real life. We'll track vaccination trends in the coming weeks. Safety first for our next story. Over the week ending September 26, Toyota recalled over 590,000 vehicles for a software glitch hiding dashboard warnings on speed, brakes, and tire pressure, while Hyundai pulled 568,000 Palisades over faulty seatbelt buckles. Both announced on September 22nd, urging owners to schedule free fixes pronto to avoid accidents. The NHTSA is overseeing, with no reported crashes yet, but it's a wake-up on tech in our rides. Toyota's issues stem from a display firmware bug affecting models from 2020 onward, where critical alerts vanished mid-drive. Hyundai's buckle problem risks unfastening in crashes, a scary proposition for families. Both companies are mailing notices and extending warranties, but the volume's huge, straining dealers. It's a hit to reputations, but transparent handling could rebuild trust. Consumers are advised to check VINs online, and apps are popping up for reminders. This duo highlights how connected cars amplify risks, pushing for better quality control. On the bright side, no injuries have been reported, which means proactive wins. Stay safe out there and get that recall done if you're affected. Ending on an uplifting chord was Story 10. On September 24th, 17-year-old Avani Altho from Houston snagged the 2025 high school win in NPR's Student Podcast Challenge for her entry weaving 3 generations of her family's immigrant story. Titled Roots and Routes, it blends oral histories with sound design, earning raves for authenticity and heart. Vani's now headed to D.C. for a workshop, proving young voices can shine nationally. What stands out? Avani interviewed her grandma about fleeing conflict in India, her mom on building a life in Texas, and reflected on her own Gen Z lens. Judges praised the vulnerability, calling it a masterclass in storytelling. This win spotlights how podcasts democratize media, letting teens tackle big themes like identity without gatekeepers. The challenge drew thousands of participants, but Avani's edged out with polish and depth. It's inspiring for aspiring creators, showing grit pays off. NPR's hosting a special airing soon, so make sure you tune in. Well, folks, that's a wrap on this week's Just a Dude in the News on Just a Dude podcast. We've covered a lot of ground, from trade shakeups to heartfelt stories, and I hope you're walking away with a clearer picture of what's going on out there. Thanks for kicking back with me, Nathan, your friendly guide through the headlines. If you've got thoughts on these stories or just want to say what's up, hit me up on social media. I love hearing from you. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss next week's rundown. Until then, stay curious, stay chill, and keep being awesome. And I'll catch you on the next episode.